Sorry, I brought my baby. The single mom apologized. The CEO picked up the child and smiled. The lights inside the restaurant glowed softly against the gathering dusk, and the rain traced silver rivulets down the windows. Inside, gentle murmurs filled the air, the clink of forks, the rustle of menus opening, and a muted piano playing a lullaby of notes in the background. Each table held its own story, couples leaning close, laughter floating in the air, the promise of new encounters. Linda Wells stood at the threshold, her heart pounding like a drum. Her blonde hair was loosely pinned, a stray curl brushing her cheek. She had donned her best modest dress, one she could afford to clean, and steadied her breathing before stepping in. At 25, a single mother, working at a modest bakery shop in her sleepy neighborhood, the world of upscale dining felt fragile under her feet. Yet here she was, because life sometimes required you to walk paths you never imagined. She held Oliver's small hand, her son, 2 years old, with big, curious eyes. She had no choice but to bring him along tonight. She whispered to him, "Be good, okay?" Oliver nodded solemnly, clutching his stuffed rabbit as they passed candlelit tables. She paused, took in the room. White tablecloths, crisp and perfect, servers gliding past, customers in elegant attire. She felt the weight of every glance. She suspected she'd stick out. But she forced her shoulders back, adjusted Oliver's jacket, and walked toward the table. At the far side, under a soft spotlight, sat a lone man. His posture was calm, composed. The cut of his suit was impeccable, the lines sharp against his broad shoulders. In that moment, everything else blurred. The distant piano, the rain, the hush of diners, and she saw him clearly. Michael Blake. She had never pictured him quite like this. She had known him as a quiet, kind face in passing, not in tailored elegance. Her breath caught when Oliver stirred and began to fuss. Linda's throat tightened. She approached the table with trembling steps. "Excuse me, Mr. Blake," she offered, voice soft. He looked up, expression neutral at first. Then recognition flickered in his eyes. He slid a chair out, gesturing she sit. "Please," he said, voice steady. Linda guided Oliver into a high chair nearby. The servers offered water cups. Oliver reached for one. Linda tried to foil him, but he tipped it. Water spilled across the tablecloth, droplets splashing onto Michael's napkin. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," she gasped. She lunged for napkins, pressing palms together. "I should never have brought him. This is so embarrassing. I'm sorry." Oliver began to cry, tiny sobs rising in his throat. Linda's cheeks burned. She sank into the seat across from Michael, shoulders slumped, head bowed. "I'm sorry. I'd like to leave. Reschedule." But her words broke as Michael stood. He pushed his chair quietly under the table, rose, and came toward her, extending a calm hand. "May I hold him?" he asked gently. Linda's breath caught, surprise and fear mingling. She looked at Oliver, still crying, then looked at Michael. His face held only kindness. She glanced into his offered hand, steady and warm. "Yes," she whispered, voice shaking. Michael knelt, cupped his arms, and Oliver, wriggling, was placed in his embrace. He cradled the child against his chest, stroking his back with gentle care. Oliver quieted, eyes blinking, cheeks pressed to Michael's shoulder. Linda watched, heart hammering. Their eyes met across the small distance between them. Michael looked up from Oliver, gaze soft. "I'm Michael Blake," he said, voice low, "and this is a pleasure, though I admit, not the meeting I expected." She looked up, startled. "Linda Wells, I'm honored you agreed to meet me, despite everything." He offered a small, patient smile. One never knows which moments hold the possibility of something more. Her throat tightened as she nodded, swallowing hard. The background murmurs, the rain against the windows, the soft piano. They faded into a kind of hush around them. In the glow of candlelight and warmth of human kindness, she felt that she might, just for a moment, belong. Michael cradled little Oliver in his arms the entire evening, speaking in a gentle murmur as he soothed the boy's cries. "There you go, buddy," he said, brushing back strands of hair from Oliver's forehead. "It's okay. I've got you." He didn't flinch when Oliver's chubby hand slapped at his tie or knocked over a bit of silverware. Linda sat across from him, heart hammering, cheeks warm. Oliver's sobs faded. He whimpered something soft, then reached his hand out, fingertips grazing Michael's cheek. Michael paused, then turned his face ever so slightly to press his cheek into the touch. Linda's breath caught. She gripped her water glass as her eyes stung. Michael glanced across at her. "He's quiet now," he said softly. "Good boy, Oliver." He ruffled the boy's hair. Linda swallowed. She tried to sound casual. "He's usually not this calm with strangers." She cleared her throat. "Thank you for holding him." Michael nodded. "I don't mind, not at all." A waiter set down warm rolls. Michael turned his chair slightly so Oliver could see them. "Want one?" he asked Oliver. "Here, you can have a roll." Oliver stretched, grabbed it clumsily, and Michael offered his hand for crumbs. Linda smiled a little, her tension easing. She found her voice. "I used to bake cookies at the shop to make ends meet. I never thought I'd bring him to a place like this." She offered him a shy laugh. "Sorry for turning this blind date into a babysitting session." Michael shook his head. "I'm not bothered. I knew when I accepted." He paused. "Actually, I was curious who would bring a child to a dinner. It tells me something about courage." Linda frowned slightly. Michael's voice softened. "Maybe both." She swallowed. "I was a student back then. I didn't plan to become pregnant. I had to drop out, fend for both of us. There was no one to lean on." She gazed down at Oliver, then back at Michael. "I've never had someone care like this." Michael nodded. "I had someone too, my fiancée. We were supposed to be married 6 months later." He swallowed. "She died in an accident. After that, I stopped trusting myself with someone's heart." He looked at Oliver. "I wasn't sure I could love again." Linda watched him. Her throat went dry. Michael shifted, brushing Oliver's tiny hand with a napkin. "Here, let me clean that." He dabbed gently. And Oliver babbled. "Ba-ba?" His voice was small. Linda froze. Michael's hand paused. He looked up at her. He said ba-ba. He smiled softly. Linda's eyes widened, warmth flooding her cheeks. She turned away, pretending to sip water while her tears threatened. When she looked back, Michael was holding Oliver stable, rocking him gently. Oliver's head rested on Michael's shoulder, eyes half-lidded. Linda cleared her throat. "Thank you for this moment." Michael glanced to her. "No thanks needed." His voice was quiet. "Sure, I'm glad to be here." They lapsed into soft conversation again. About early mornings baking cakes, about the hum of ovens in the wee hours, about places they'd like to visit someday. Linda laughed softly at Michael's descriptions of boardroom chaos. Michael smiled at her stories of frosting mishaps and spilled batter. As dessert arrived, vanilla creme brulee lit under fire. Oliver stirred awake. Linda stood quickly, murmuring apologies. "I'll take him outside for a moment. He's probably tired." But Michael rose too, slipping behind her. "I will walk with you," he said gently. "Let me help." She nodded, voice small. "Thank you." They walked out to the foyer together, Oliver in her arms, now asleep. Michael held the restaurant door open, watching as Linda wrapped her shawl tighter. His eyes softened. Inside, the restaurant glowed. Outside, the rain continued its steady tap. Linda looked into Michael's eyes. "Thank you for staying so much longer." Michael nodded. "I'm not leaving just yet." Linda's heart betrayed relief and hope. They stood there for a moment, in the hush between rain and warm light, knowing the night would linger in memory far beyond any menu or ending. The park was quieter than usual that afternoon. Late sunlight spilled across the grass in golden layers. Children laughed near the swings, and a breeze rustled through the sycamores. Linda walked slowly, her fingers loosely curled around Oliver's chubby hand. He toddled beside her in uneven steps, occasionally stopping to pick up pebbles or point at passing dogs. She hadn't expected to see Michael again, not here, not like this. But there he was, sitting on a bench near the duck pond, a cup of coffee in one hand and a book in the other. His suit jacket was gone, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked different, relaxed, real. "Michael?" she called softly. He looked up, eyes blinking from the sunday. When he saw her, his face shifted, surprise, then warmth. "Linda," he said, standing immediately. "Hey." Oliver squealed. He called, running toward Michael with open arms. Michael bent down without hesitation. "Hey there, buddy." Oliver lunged into his arms, giggling. Michael lifted him with ease, settling the boy on his hip. Linda watched, stunned by how natural it all looked. "Are you often in this park?" she asked, awkward. "I am now," he said with a smirk. She laughed. "Stalker vibes. Or fate." They walked a little together. Michael still held Oliver, who had started playing with the buttons on his shirt. "He's really taken with you," Linda said, glancing at her son. "I'm honored," Michael replied. "It's been a while since anyone this small drooled on me and got away with it." As if on cue, Oliver shifted. Then, suddenly, Michael flinched. "Oh no," he said, stopping mid-step. I think I just got peed on." Linda's eyes widened. "What?" Michael looked down. The front of his beige pants was soaked. Oliver looked up, totally innocent, then pointed at a squirrel nearby. "Oh my God," Linda gasped, half in horror, half in uncontrollable laughter. Before she could react further, a little girl walking past with her mother pointed and asked loudly, "Mommy, why did that man pee his pants?" Michael's eyes widened. Linda covered her mouth. The mother stifled a giggle. Linda lost it first. A laugh exploded out of her, full and bright. "Oh no, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be laughing. This is terrible." Michael held Oliver away from his body slightly, sighing. "Well, I guess this is who I am now. CEO of Wet Pants. I'll get you something. Napkins or—" He waved her off. "It's fine. It's just part of the job description now, right?" She looked at him then. Really looked. The usually polished, untouchable man now had a toddler-sized wet patch on his pants, hair tousled from little fingers, and the softest smile on his face. They sat down under a tree. Michael laid Oliver on a blanket and tickled his belly gently. The boy shrieked with joy. Linda turned to him, voice softer now. "You know, you look like a real dad when you're with him." Michael froze. He didn't look at her right away, just stared down at the boy, whose hands were now pulling grass and tossing it into the air. She thought maybe she'd said too much. "But then," he said, quietly, "sometimes I wish I were." Their eyes met. Linda swallowed hard. "He's never had a man in his life. Not really. Just me." Michael didn't answer. He didn't need to. The wind picked up slightly, brushing golden strands of her hair into her face. Michael reached over without thinking and tucked them behind her ear. His fingers lingered for a second longer than necessary. Linda looked away, blinking fast. "I didn't mean to say something so intense," she said. "It wasn't too much," he said. "It was true." They sat quietly after that, watching Oliver chase butterflies he could never catch. For the first time in a long time, Michael wasn't thinking about meetings, deadlines, or mergers. He was just a man. With a woman, and a boy who had accidentally peed on him, and somehow it had all felt exactly right. The bakery smelled like cinnamon and warm vanilla, but Linda couldn't taste any of it. She was frosting cupcakes when she overheard the voice, sharp, just loud enough to cut through the hum of ovens. "Some people really think they can bag a CEO by showing up with a baby," Marissa said, smirking as she leaned over the counter toward another coworker. "Like seriously, what kind of man wants to raise someone else's kid?" Linda's hand froze mid-swipe. Her heart sank, but she stayed silent. "And let's be real," Marissa continued. "He's not going to stick around. When that fantasy crashes, the kid's the one who'll suffer." This time, Linda turned. "Excuse me?" Marissa blinked. "Oh, did I say something untrue?" "You don't know him. You don't know me. I know enough. You're a single mom working part-time in a bakery. He's a Blake, the Michael Blake. Don't be stupid." Linda's voice was calm, but her eyes were steel. "Don't talk about my son like that. Ever." Before Marissa could reply, the manager stepped in. "Hey, enough drama. This isn't high school." Linda looked at him, shocked. "You're not going to say anything about what she said?" He sighed. "Just let it go. We have customers. Let it go." That night, Linda didn't sleep. She sat by the window of her apartment, knees pulled to her chest. Oliver curled against her, thumb in mouth. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, her mind spiraled. Was Marissa right? Was she chasing something impossible? She thought about Michael, his steady hands, the way he'd held Oliver like he wasn't a burden, like he was something precious, the way he listened, really listened. But then, the doubt crept in. What if it's not enough? What if he wakes up one day and realizes, I don't belong in his world? Her fingers hovered over her phone. She typed and deleted the same message 5 times. "Maybe we should slow down. You deserve someone with less baggage. This isn't going to work." Each time, she stopped. She couldn't send them. On the 3rd day, she turned off her phone. And that was when Michael showed up. He didn't knock at her apartment. He went to the bakery first. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside, suit jacket unbuttoned, hair slightly tousled like he'd run his hands through it too many times. "Is Linda working today?" he asked the manager. The man scratched the back of his neck. "She quit. A few days ago." Michael frowned. "Why?" "She had a disagreement. Look, I don't get involved." One of the younger employees looked up from the counter. It wasn't her fault. Someone said some really mean things. She just walked out. Michael's jaw tightened. "Thank you." He left the bakery and headed straight for Linda's apartment. She wasn't expecting anyone. When the knock came, she opened the door in a worn t-shirt and leggings, Oliver on her hip, a pacifier dangling from his shirt. "Michael, I heard what happened," he said gently. She looked down. "You shouldn't have come." "I wanted to. I needed to." She stepped aside. He entered. Oliver's face lit up. "Mike!" he squealed, reaching out. Michael chuckled, taking the toddler into his arms without hesitation. He bounced him gently, letting silence settle between him and Linda. "I didn't know what to say," she admitted. "I didn't want to drag you into my mess." "You're not dragging me," he said. I walked in, willingly. She sat down slowly, fingers curled into her lap. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Scared this is too good, that you'll wake up and regret this." Michael looked at her, then at the child in his arms. "If I'm going to be scared," he said, "let me be scared for you. For him. That's what love looks like, doesn't it?" Linda's breath caught. She nodded, eyes stinging. "I wasn't looking for this," he continued, "but it found me, and I'm not walking away." He sat beside her, still holding Oliver, who was now playing with Michael's tie. "I missed you," Linda whispered. "I missed us," he said, and for the first time in 3 days, the storm in her chest quieted. The afternoon sun filtered through the blinds of Linda's small apartment, casting golden stripes across the wooden floor. The air was warm, still, and quiet, almost like it was waiting. A knock came. Not rushed, not hesitant, just steady. Linda opened the door slowly, heart pounding. She had not expected to see him again so soon, not after the silence she had built like a wall. But there he was. Michael Blake, standing in a dark gray sweater and jeans, his hair slightly windblown, his eyes softer than she remembered. And before she could say a word, a blur of movement streaked past her legs. "Mike!" Oliver squealed, arms outstretched. Michael bent instinctively, catching the 2-year-old mid-run and lifting him into the air with practiced ease. "Hey, buddy," he said with a smile, burying his face in the toddler's hair for a second longer than necessary. Linda pressed her hand to her chest. Michael looked up, still holding Oliver. "I didn't come here for an explanation," he said simply. "I came because I missed you." She swallowed hard, her voice catching. "I was going to text you. I just didn't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." He stepped inside as she moved back, the door closing gently behind them. The apartment smelled faintly of baked apples and vanilla, a scent Michael now associated with her. With them. He sat down on the couch with Oliver still perched on his lap. The boy was busy playing with the zipper on Michael's sweater, completely at ease. Linda sat across from them, nervously twisting a thread on her sleeve. "I was scared," she finally said. "Still am." Michael nodded. "So am I." She blinked. "If you're afraid," he said, "then let me be the one who carries it. Let me be the one who panics at 2 a.m. about the future. Let me be the one who worries about messing this up." Linda's lips trembled. But you?" he interrupted gently. "You just need to believe. In us, in me, in the way I look at your son, and see something I never knew I needed." There was no dramatic music, no sweeping declarations. Just a man, a child in his arms, and a truth so raw it didn't need dressing up. Linda crossed the room slowly. She sat beside them, her thigh brushing his. Oliver giggled between them. She leaned her head onto Michael's shoulder. "I missed this," she murmured. "I missed you," he replied. There were no tears, no apologies. Just 3 people sitting quietly in the late afternoon sun, wrapped in a feeling that didn't need defining. Michael kissed her temple. "Linda," he said softly, "let me be the man who stays." She looked up at him, and he cupped her face with one hand, thumb brushing her cheek. "Let me be the first man who teaches you what it feels like to be loved right." Her breath hitched. "Not perfectly," he added, "but wholly, and without fear." Oliver, sensing the weight of the moment in a way only children could, placed a tiny hand between their faces and giggled. Linda laughed softly, the sound fragile but full. "You already are," she whispered. They stayed like that for a long time, not making promises, just choosing each other, in the silence, in the sunlight, in the shared stillness of a heart finally saying yes. The sign above the door was small but elegant, painted in pale cream and gold, sugar and heart. Inside, sunlight poured through tall windows onto polished wooden counters, the scent of vanilla buttercream and fresh sponge cakes floating in the air. It was nothing like the cramped kitchen where Linda used to work. This space felt open, hopeful, like a blank page. Linda stood in the doorway, her apron still in her hands, staring at the glass display cases lined with eclairs, tarts, and pastel-colored cupcakes. "Michael," she murmured, her voice trailing off. Michael leaned casually against the counter, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. "Welcome to your new workplace," he said lightly, but his eyes held something deeper. "I figured you deserved better than clocking out at midnight in someone else's kitchen." Linda turned to him, stunned. "This is yours?" He smiled faintly. "Ours, if you'll take it." Her breath caught. "Michael, She hesitated, overwhelmed. "I don't even know how to thank you." "You don't need to." He gestured toward the office door in the back. Paperwork's there. Contracts. I just need your signature as manager. A week later, she was still trying to adjust. Each morning, Michael would show up under the pretense of checking inventory or making sure the espresso machine was working. But really, he came to watch Oliver toddle between tables, chubby fingers reaching for crumbs, laughing at customers. He came to watch Linda too, her hair tied back, cheeks flushed as she arranged pastries in the display case, moving like she'd been born to do this. One quiet afternoon, Linda's best friend, Mia, stopped by. She peered over the counter and whispered, "You know your name's on the ownership papers, right?" Linda blinked. "What?" Mia nodded. "Michael didn't just make you manager, he made you co-owner. I saw the documents when I helped him order the kitchen equipment." The air seemed to shift. Linda felt her knees go weak. "He never told me." Mia smiled knowingly. "Guess he wanted you to find out in your own time." Later that evening, after the rush had died down, Linda stood behind the counter, wiping a tray, heart full and aching all at once. Across the room, Michael was kneeling to tie Oliver's shoe, the toddler babbling happily. The sight pressed on her chest like a memory she hadn't known she needed. Customers trickled in and out, many of them regulars now. They came for the cupcakes, but stayed for the warmth that seemed to radiate from the little shop. One of them, a silver-haired woman in a pale pink coat, lingered at the counter, watching Michael and Oliver. She finally approached Linda with a smile. "You two make such a lovely couple," she said softly. "And that little boy? He looks so much like his mother." Linda flushed, wiping her hands nervously on her apron. "Oh, we're not." Before she could finish, Michael appeared at her side. He'd heard every word. He set Oliver gently on the counter, reached into his jacket pocket, and drew out a small velvet box. Linda froze. Michael's eyes searched hers, steady, unguarded. "You were about to explain," he said softly. "Let me." The cafe hushed. Even the clink of cups seemed to stop. He went down on one knee, right there between the tables, smelling of sugar and cinnamon. "Linda Wells," he began, voice low but clear, "I know you never asked for anything from me, not this shop, not my time, not even my heart." Her breath shook. "But you've had all of it, anyway," he continued. "From the first moment you apologized for bringing Oliver, from the first time he touched my face, from the first time you made me feel human again." He opened the box. Inside sat a delicate ring, a simple band that caught the light like a promise. "Please," Michael said, his voice breaking just slightly, "let me take care of both of you. Let me be the man who stays." Linda's hand flew to her mouth. Oliver, sensing something exciting, clapped his small hands, giggling. Around them, customers smiled, phones raised discreetly to capture the moment. Linda blinked back tears, her heart loud in her ears. This was not a scene from a movie. This was her life, messy, imperfect, but suddenly, incredibly real. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was about to run. Michael stayed kneeling. The soft hum of the bakery faded into stillness. Even Oliver, perched on the counter with frosting smeared near his lip, sensed something important was happening. He stopped clapping and looked between his mother and Michael with wide, curious eyes. Linda's breath caught in her throat. Her hands trembled against her apron. She hadn't planned for this. Not now. Not ever, really. Michael's voice was calm, steady, but there was a depth to it, the kind that only came when a man had thought about something for a long time. "I know you never asked for anything," he said again, softer this time. "But Linda, you deserve more than just surviving. You deserve sweetness, laughter, a hand to hold when things get hard. And Oliver, he deserves someone who will show up every day, no matter what." A few customers had stopped mid-conversation. Mia peeked out from the kitchen, her eyes wide with surprise. The silver-haired woman near the window smiled like she'd known it all along. Linda took a slow step forward, her eyes fixed on the small ring in the box. It was simple. No diamonds. No spectacle. Just gold, warm, solid, honest. Michael, she whispered, voice cracking. I'm just a girl who used to burn toast in a tiny apartment while trying to rock a crying baby to sleep. I never imagined. He looked up at her. You don't have to imagine anymore. Let me build this life with you. Not because I pity you, not because I want to rescue anyone, but because somewhere between a spilled drink and a flour-dusted countertop, I realized, this is the life I want. Oliver suddenly clapped again, letting out a squeal of delight. Mommy, he chirped. Happy? Linda let out a half-laugh, half-sob. Yes, baby, she whispered. So happy. Tears welled in her eyes as she dropped to her knees, right there beside Michael. She cupped his face, leaning her forehead against his. You really want us? Even the hard days? Michael smiled. Especially the hard days. Linda nodded slowly. Okay, she breathed. Yes. Gasps and applause erupted around the shop. Someone whistled. Mia wiped her eyes with a dish towel. Michael slipped the ring onto her finger. It wasn't flashy, but it fit perfectly, like it had always been meant for her hand. He kissed her, just once, gently, not for show, not for the audience, just them, in their little corner of sugar and sunlight. Oliver wrapped his arms around both their necks in a sticky, frosting-scented hug. The three of them huddled there on the floor, a little mess of love and hope and beginnings. Outside, the world carried on, cars, sirens, city hum. But inside the bakery, time felt suspended, wrapped in the warmth of vanilla and something much rarer. Certainty. The new sign outside the bakery read, Sweet Home, carved into reclaimed wood, the letters curled like warm cinnamon. Beneath it, flower boxes brimmed with marigolds and lavender, tended by small hands and bigger hearts. Inside, the scent of vanilla and nutmeg lingered like a promise. Linda stood behind the counter in a pale yellow apron, her hands dusted with flour as she guided two children through the steps of shaping cookie dough. These are for the fundraiser, okay? She said, smiling. So make sure no fingers go into mouths. The kids giggled. One of them nodded solemnly, like she was being entrusted with state secrets. In the far corner, Michael sat cross-legged on the floor with Oliver and three more children, building a castle out of wooden blocks. He made explosion noises as Oliver smashed a dragon into the tower, causing the kids to erupt in laughter. Linda watched them from afar, heart full. After months of small beginnings, the bakery had become something more than a place for pastries. It had become a refuge, a soft place to land for kids from the local orphanage. A space for single moms to learn job skills, a haven where kindness baked itself into every batch. They never advertised. Word just spread. On Thursdays, Linda ran a free baking class for children who had never owned an oven mitt. On Fridays, Michael helped host open mic nights, where a teen poet once read a piece about hope that made the entire room cry. Their love story wasn't loud. It didn't post selfies or chase hashtags. It simply lived, quietly, steadily, beautifully, through every hand-folded napkin, every shared smile over a tray of cooling cupcakes. One slow Sunday afternoon, Linda leaned against the doorway, watching Michael juggle oranges for a trio of squealing toddlers. He dropped one, grinned sheepishly, and bowed like a magician. Show off, she teased. He walked over, brushing imaginary sweat from his brow. It's an art. She smirked. And is falling part of the act? He leaned in, his voice lower. Only when I fall for you. Linda rolled her eyes but didn't hide her blush. They stood there a moment, letting the sounds of laughter and soft jazz fill the space between them. Then, softly, Linda said, You know. Since you walked into that restaurant, with your perfect hair and your too nice watch, my baking's changed. Michael looked at her, confused. Changed? She nodded. It's sweeter, somehow, like something inside me finally melted. He chuckled, pulling her into a side hug. Pretty sure that's just extra sugar. No, she said, looking up at him. It's you. He kissed her forehead, silent for a beat. They turned toward the back wall of the bakery, where a small wooden sign hung, nailed beside their wedding photo. On it, carved in looping letters. Sometimes, love doesn't knock, it walks in, with a diaper bag. Linda traced the edge of the sign with her eyes. That was their story. Not polished, not perfect, but profoundly theirs. From the spilled water to the ring, from the tears in a dim apartment to a full table at dinner, they had built a life, not from grandeur, but from grace. Oliver ran toward them just then, a smudge of frosting on his cheek, waving a drawing with 3 stick figures under a crooked sundae. Look, Mommy, Daddy made me a cape. Michael laughed, scooping the boy up in one arm. Linda smiled at the picture. Yes, this was sweet home. And they were finally all home. Thank you for joining us on this heartwarming journey of Linda, Michael, and little Oliver. From a messy blind date to a life filled with laughter, love, and second chances, their story reminds us that the most unexpected moments often lead to the most beautiful endings. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who believes in love after hardship. And for more tales of kindness, resilience, and real love, make sure to subscribe to Kindness and Love Tales and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change your day. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in second chances.